Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 3:08 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and ready to rock on this Monday, the 8th day of January. I mean, I look at the temperature and I got to tell you, it doesn't feel like it's 49 degrees. It's blustery out there.
Only going to get worse, too, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we have wind advisories in effect. And yeah, I sort of laugh because, I grew up in West Texas where 45-mile-an-hour winds. Ha! We laugh at that.
It's just another
nothing.
day.
Yeah, that's just a Monday. That's no big deal. That's the way it is every day, and especially in the winter and the early spring. But no, it's sort of breezy out there, and I mean, I in the 50 feet between the house and the studio, I got a chill.
Wow.
I know.
Imagine if you'd have had to walk further.
I know. What if I'd have had to walk from the parking lot to the building or something like that? Oh my goodness!
Just cruel work conditions.
Yeah, it's really it's unbelievable. Now, listen, stay warm and be aware of the wind. It really wind like this is not a problem. I mean, this time of year, you've already taken down the umbrellas, right? I mean, the umbrellas are down, and you all the cushions are in. Yeah, there's not that. But I guess it's the high profile vehicles don't do well in this. And so what is a high profile vehicle? I guess that's a truck.
Trucks, SUVs, vans.
Yeah. I would say a high profile vehicle is like a Corvette. I mean, you can't miss that.
Different kind of profile.
Different kind of profile. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Well, anyway, listen, welcome to the drive for this 8th day of January 2024. We're going to be 1 week from today. We'll be in Iowa. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Let's start by trying to solve a mystery. What in the world was going on with our Secretary of Defense, and why was he not, in letting people know that he was in ICU and apparently in some level of incapacitation? Unbelievable. Now, look, I mean, it started out innocently enough with an elective surgery on December 22nd. That I don't know what kind of elective surgery it was. He's not saying HIPAA and all that. But he then went home and then returned on New Year's Eve, apparently in some pain, experiencing severe pain. Now, what kind of pain? I don't know. It's hard to know without knowing exactly what kind of surgery it was. But it was serious enough that he ended up in the ICU and apparently was incapacitated for some portion of that time. And nobody seemed to know about it. There was no handoff to his deputy. And they say, well, the deputy does need to be informed. Well, yeah, I think the deputy needs to be informed that indeed she's going to be making the decisions and she needs to be on high alert. By the way, she was on vacation. She was off in the Caribbean somewhere. And so, why in the world wasn't that person made aware? Remember, your Secretary of Defense has a very significant role, not only in being the liaison between the President of the United States and his top commanders and being responsible civilian control of the Pentagon, but also plays a vital role in the whole nuclear thing. If somehow we needed to, have the launch codes, somehow he's a part of that. It's never been made exactly clear how that works. But he is a part of it. And apparently there was nobody with the Deputy Secretary of Defense, a woman by the name of, I think, Kathleen Hicks, I believe is her name. Yeah, Kathleen Hicks. And she was completely in the dark and on vacation, did not know that he was in the hospital intensive care unit for treatment on New Year's Day and days after. And it only became aware, the president didn't even know. So, I mean, how the president doesn't know, the Deputy Secretary of Defense doesn't know. There's some indication that maybe some in the Joint Chiefs of Staff knew, but I guess they assumed that others had been notified. It wasn't until Thursday it became clear that he was back in the hospital, and then everybody started saying, what? He's in the hospital? What do you mean he's been incapacitated for several days? I mean, set aside the very serious national security breach that took place when the proper procedures were not followed with regard to nuclear weapons and the codes, the person who was on vacation, the deputy, didn't know and didn't have the nuclear person there with her. They should have sent somebody down to her and would have normally had they only known. But set that aside for a moment. I mean, that's a serious, serious matter right there. Not having, what if there had been something that required, I mean, God forbid, but you'd want it to go off and they say, okay, Mr. Secretary, I'm sorry, the secretary's not there. Where is the secretary? He's in the hospital? He's in the intensive care unit? Well, what would have been nice if somebody had told us, we have a nuclear matter here. We need the Secretary of Defense. How would that have worked? How would they straightened that out? So that's bad. But there's also, this is a very, very tense time on the world stage. Understand that right now we have attacks going on against our men and women in the Mideast. I mean, I think it was about 100 rocket attacks against the various military installations we have splayed all across the Mideast. And we have aircraft carriers that are shooting at Houthi rebels. We have Iran moving into the Red Sea to challenge those aircraft carriers. We have all kinds of stuff going on with Ukraine. We're not directly involved, but we are supporting Ukraine and are very involved in providing them with materials and intelligence. And the Russians have been acting badly. What about the Chinese? Maybe the reason. I mean, there's no reason why I can understand just saying we're not going to tell anybody. We're not going to make a public announcement. I can see that. You wouldn't want to alert all your world leaders that the Secretary of Defense is incapacitated. But seems like the President of the United States, well, hold it, he's incapacitated too. I don't know. Maybe that's not the problem I thought it was. But, I mean, it seems like the President should know. Somebody at the White House should know. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense should know. Key players on Capitol Hill should know. And for some reason, we still don't have all the details. I mean, the Secretary of Defense says, well, listen, maybe I could have done a little better in trying to bring people along and keeping them informed about it, but it's my elective procedure, and he seems to be saying, and it's my business. Well, hold on a minute. That may be all good and fine if you're Bob and you're going down to the hospital to have some kind of medical procedure and your medical information, needs to be protected. That's one thing. But when you're the Secretary of Defense, you have a little bit different standard. Your standard is, I need to make sure the nation is secure. I need to make sure that the chain of command is solid. These are difficult and tense times around the world. So it's really troublesome. Today, John Kirby, who speaks on behalf of the National Security Council, he was on a plane. He's on Air Force One. He's headed off to one of these events that Biden's doing this week that doesn't mean anything. And he was asked about it, and he said, well, we're going to review this and take a look at it. Here's John Kirby aboard Air Force One today.
He's already doing all the functions he would normally do. He's doing it right now from the hospital. We'll take a look at process and procedure here and try to learn from this experience. And if there's some changes that need to be made in terms of process and procedure, we'll do that.
Yeah, if there are changes that need to be made, no, there are no changes that need to be made. It's just you need to follow what the proper procedure is. I've got a little thing here that talks about that. About what are the proper procedures. Apparently, it's all written out in law, and the law apparently was not followed. Here's what Senator Wicker of Mississippi said: worrying that we now have more questions than answer. Why was the notification process under 5 U.S.C. 3349 not followed, and who made the determination not to follow it? What role did the Secretary of Defense's staff play? When exactly was the president notified? What justification for the department have for withholding information from the National Security Council? That's the people who, should be the liaison between the Pentagon and the president. To what extent was the secretary incapacitated by his surgery? The very fact that we have none of this information is an indictment of an administration which consistently holds congressional authority on national defense matters in contempt. Here is Senator Tom Cotton talking about this, and there now you're beginning to have people calling for the resignation of Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense.
It's a matter of judgment. Whatever your process and procedure is, of course, when you're the Secretary of Defense or his Chief of Staff or other senior department official, and you know that you're going in for surgery, even if it's minor elective surgery, you have to have contingency plans if something goes wrong. You have to have the basic sound judgment to give a call to the President or the National Security Advisor and say, hey, I'm going in for this surgery, or you have to have your staff call in and do that. And if your judgment is so poor on such a simple matter, what does it say about your judgment on things like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, or the support for Israel in the Middle East, or efforts to deter China from attacking Taiwan? Someone is going to have to resign over this. And right now, since Lloyd Austin has taken responsibility for it, it would appear that Lloyd Austin is the person who needs to resign, or his Chief of Staff, or both of them. Because it also sounds like many senior Department of Defense officials were also not in the loop. Again, this is a shocking breakdown in the chain of command and basic communication within the department and to the White House. As you said, this is not the Secretary of Transportation or Housing and Urban Development. This is the Secretary of Defense, who's in the chain of command, including the nuclear chain of command, who has to be reachable and whose whereabouts and conditions have to be known at all times by the Commander-in-Chief. Just another example of Joe Biden falling down on the job.
Well, Lloyd Austin is 70 years old, and there are now calls on Capitol Hill for him to step down as Secretary of Defense. The word is he's not going to do that. But, I mean, heads have got to roll on this one. Somebody is responsible for making some bad decisions. And if it was Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, then he's the one who needs to pay the price. But probably some lower-level scheduling staffer will get the responsibility and will probably be fired for this. Seems unfair because Lloyd Austin showed poor judgment that could have potentially put men and women of our military at risk and certainly put the nation at a higher risk. So stay tuned. I don't think this one's going away anytime soon. And by the way, he's still, even at the hospital, he may be taking phone calls and making decisions, but he's not back on his feet yet. We'll stay on top of this one. 21 after the hour.
Where has the defense secretary been for the past few days? Plus, a murder suspect in custody here in Tennessee. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, there's Mac Maury. Boy, we're going to have some stuff to talk about today on Mac Maury's wide world of sports. That's at 5:20. We might even have to do two of those today because there's so much going on.
Wow, a lot going on.
And by the way, has there been any news? I mean, I kept reading where Vrabel was going to have a big meeting. Was it today? I think he's supposed to have a big meeting.
I believe that's today. I'm not for sure, but right now all I'm seeing on the Vrabel-Belichick front is speculation. But we're keeping our eyes on it because there are people reporting different things. We're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, apparently they was going to have a big meeting with management to determine the future of the franchise, and I use that. I think that's code for Vrabel's future as well. So it'd be interesting to see, what comes out of that. So again, stay tuned. We'll be all over it, and Mac Maury. Trust me, he's plugged in. He's got this stuff. And there's old Chris Webber having, he's there pushing the blinky buttons in the control room, as he always does. How was your weekend, Chris?
Yeah, it was good. Nothing to report.
I have
All
puppy
quiet.
duties because Cabana wife is on a little trip. And so it seemed, it's a lot of work having a puppy.
Double the fun.
Well, and Cabana wife takes a lot of that load off of me on days when I'm working, and so I'm telling you, that little puppy's a lot of work. There's a lot of pee and poo duty. I'm telling you, and constant feedings. I mean, just that kind of stuff. So that a lot of my weekend was focused on dealing with the dogs. And when I wasn't doing that, I was preparing for the trip to Iowa. We'll be broadcasting live 1 week from today and from Des Moines, Iowa, which is really, it's one of the garden spots of the Midwest.
It's one of those cities in the Midwest, yes.
It's a city in the Midwest. And it's cold up there, and
Grief,
what
it
is
keeps
the
getting
temperature?
worse. It's forecast. Well, let's see. Right now, it's not bad. It's 35 degrees or so in Des Moines. Snow showers. But next Monday, the forecast high has dropped to 3 degrees now, with a low of -5.
Yeah, well, those Iowans are hardy people. They'll still get up and go to the caucus, but put on your long johns. It's gonna be cold. Thank you for that. That's I'm so glad I decided to do this. Listen, by the way, I want to say a big thank you to the folks over at Busy Bee, who have been one of the sponsors of my program almost since day one. In fact, I think since day one, practically, they have been a sponsor of what I do and greatly appreciate them. And they are going to sponsor the trip to Iowa, as will the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project. So
Nice.
Thank you to these two great organizations for finding value in what we do. And they are the sponsors of our program, and they are making this whole thing possible. Thanks again, Busy Bee and the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project. So, I mean, I've got all my gear packed up, got all my electronic equipment checked out.
It's all functioning.
Well, we will find out here
Hopefully.
during the commercial break. During the news here in just a moment, we'll find out if it's working like I think it's working. And but here's the amazing thing is that, I'm going to be broadcasting throughout the day on Caucus Day in Iowa, making appearances, I think, on all the shows at one point or another. And then I'll do the entire drive from Iowa. If there's other news of the day, we'll certainly work it in, but our focus is going to be, politics 2024. And I'll be on Sunday, the day before that, I'll be out, trying to catch up with as many of the candidates as I can. So that's what we'll be doing. And then on the way back, Tuesday, it's just a drive day, but because the Radio Red Flyer has high definition audio capabilities, and while I'm on the road driving down the highway, we'll be checking in if there's any follow-up while I'm driving across the most barren parts of the state, the nation's Midwest.
Hopefully there's a decent cell coverage through those areas.
Because it's required that I have good cell coverage.
Yes.
So, but man, we've done this before, and it works. It's really pretty reliable technology. So, we'll bring you everything you need to know from Iowa, the Hawkeye State, not to be confused with the Buckeye State.
Yeah, that's Ohio.
That's Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay. And on that note, it is now time for the news with Mac Maury at 30 minutes past the hour.
Minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Partly cloudy, 53 degrees on Music Row. Wind advisory now in effect from 6 p.m. tonight through midnight Wednesday. So going into effect starting at 6 tonight. Wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour expected. The strongest gusts are expected tonight. Full weather forecast and a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. We're now learning more about who knew what when it comes to the ongoing hospitalization of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. It only became public knowledge last Friday, 4 days after Austin was taken by ambulance to the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Stephen Portnoy has the latest.
The Pentagon's top uniformed spokesman now says he was made aware of Lloyd Austin's hospitalization last Tuesday, but the news remained a secret and wasn't shared with the president or his aides until last Thursday, and only after the deputy defense secretary was finally told that Austin was in intensive care. The Pentagon says Austin is now out of the ICU, but still experiencing discomfort. Officials have still not named the elective procedure he sought, nor have they detailed the complications that he suffered.
And he went to get an unknown voluntary procedure December 22nd, back at the hospital 10 days later. White House didn't really know until Thursday. He was in the hospital again on Tuesday. Right now in Nashville, a murder suspect in custody. Metro Police say 43-year-old Corey Frazier is in custody and charged with criminal homicide for the shooting death of Richard Wilder. Wilder was found dead at the wheel of a wrecked pickup truck on Brickchurch Pike 2 days before Christmas. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, let's talk about the folks over at DT McCall. Good people who can help you with whatever you need for your house. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you need appliances, huge selection of appliances. You need furniture, they got it. Whatever it is a need. And as you start to move towards spring, you might want to start thinking about mowers. They got all kinds of different mowers. But, DT McCall and Sons is a great place to do business, run by the same family for over 100 years. And, you don't make it over 100 years without having a reputation for treating people right. And I think that's one of the things about this company that I like. The other thing that I like about this company is that they try to keep the dollars local. And the way they do that is that they try to do business with and sell products that are made and manufactured in the state of Tennessee. You've heard of England Furniture, not made in England at all, made right here in Tennessee. They got a mattress line exclusive to DT McCall's. I have one of them. I'm sleep on them on a regular basis, made in Tennessee. They don't spend a lot of money on expensive storefronts. They just put the savings in your pocket. And it may be the only place in Middle Tennessee where you can buy a bedroom suite, a freezer, an appliance, a riding mower, and a chainsaw, all at the same place. So listen, let me just say to you, whatever it is you need for your home, you need to know about the DT McCalls, and you need to go by. If you've not been by one of their stores, they're cavernous places. You just got to go by and take it all in. Find out about their convenient locations by going to their website, dtmccalls.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. I'm your friend and radio body. No, I'm not that. I'm your friend and radio buddy. And we're so glad that you're with us on this Monday, chilly, breezy day. But nonetheless, to just, stay by the radio. I think, warm your hands on the warm glow of the tubes. No, I guess they don't have tubes anymore. Just put your hand over the radio and feel the warmth.
Speaking of warmth, this was just brought to my attention. We were talking about the weather you're going to experience in Des Moines on Monday of next week. Apparently, we're supposed to have some winter weather finally moving into the area next week. Some snow showers possible at the
I don't know.
first part of the week.
I've been chilled for about 3 days. I can't get warm. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be down in the 20s possibly in some areas, some snow showers.
Right?
Yeah,
Huh.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, it is that time of year.
That's true.
And so remember, no matter how bad it is here, I'm going to be in Iowa where the temperature is in the single digits.
Single digits.
Damn near zero. Whew. So anyway, listen, let's do our 2024 update. And boy, I got an embarrassment of riches of things to talk about here. And we'll jump right into it. Kamala Harris continues to stun and amaze. I mean, this woman is just clueless. And this little clip of sound, I just was going to go, what planet is she living on that she doesn't understand how this comes across to half of America right now? Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, out making campaign stops and doing the things that she does. And she says that we have a situation where the Republicans, she says, that are trying to silence the voice of the people. I don't know what she's talking about.
We fight to protect the sacred freedom to vote, while they try to silence the voice of the people.
Has she not paid attention to what's going on right now? I mean, she says that Republicans are trying to silence the voice of the people with regard to the elections. I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, she's talking about laws that require you to prove you are who you say you are when you show up at the polls. How is that silencing people? We're just making sure that people are qualified to vote. And if you're qualified to vote, it's no problem. That's not silencing anyone. I'll tell you what silencing is. Silencing is the Democrat efforts to try to keep Donald Trump off the ballot in places like Colorado and Maine and other places around the country. And now it's even widening. They're trying to keep certain Republicans who are running for Congress off the ballot, saying, well, they're insurrectionists. We can't let them vote. Well, I mean, first of all, the Supreme Court's going to make short shrift of that, but it's not Republicans who are trying to silence people and silence their voice. It is the Democrats that are trying. Does she not pay attention? Does she not read the news? Why would you say such a thing? Why would you say such a thing? Unbelievable. Let me talk about how bad things are for Democrats right now. Now, I'll admit to you, and I've got a story on, I'll get to it in a minute, that the numbers have tightened up between Trump and Biden in recent days. There were some polls out there where, in some Trump was leading by 4, he's leading by 5, he's leading by 6. Now he's leading by 1. Those numbers, almost every poll that comes out, it's like 1 or 2 points that he leads by. He's still leading, but not by the same margin that he was earlier. A lot of real problems still, and weakness, on the part of Biden and his support. It's about a mile wide and an inch deep. And a lot of people that have been traditional voters for the Democrat Party are making noises like they don't think that they'll be there. Black voters are especially, prepared to sit on their hands. And in fact, I've got a little something on that. Here is Representative James Clyburn. He was asked on CNN, are you concerned that black voters might not turn out for a Joe Biden candidacy?
How worried are you about black voters showing up for President Biden in November? Well, I'm not worried. I'm very concerned, and I have sat down with President Biden. I don't know. I saw those reports. I've also seen at least one report indicating that I have sat down with President Biden, and I did with him, and I've told him what my concerns are. I have no problem with the Biden administration and what it has done. My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall in order to get to people exactly what this president has done.
You haven't been able to break through the MAGA wall. So let me understand. So the MAGA, the people who want to make America great and to support Donald Trump, the MAGA nation, apparently are doing everything they can, and they're blocking the ability of black Americans to get real information. How does that work? Do you think that that black voters, by and large, pay any attention to what the MAGA voters want? I don't think they do at all. I think they are two disparate groups, and I think that they're out there looking at the coming election, and I think black Americans remember they had it pretty good under Donald Trump. That there were a lot of black people working, minority unemployment reached levels not seen since, I don't know, the 60s or something. So, I mean, it was a good time, a prosperous time for black Americans, and I think they recall that, and I think they look at, well, you know what, ever since Joe Biden became president, it's gotten progressively worse for me. What's the old saying, are you better off now than you were, well, in this case, three years ago? I think a lot of black Americans are saying, no, I'm not. And James Clyburn said he is concerned. He is concerned. And he's had conversations with the president. Another black American who apparently had conversations with the president of the United States is a former president of the United States, Barack Obama. One hears that there was a luncheon recently at the White House where Obama expressed concerns about the nature of the campaign that Biden is waging.
As President Biden ramps up his general election campaign, there are new warning signs. The Washington Post reporting former President Obama has raised questions about the structure of President Biden's reelection campaign. Two sources confirmed to NBC News that Obama and Biden met over lunch in December and discussed the campaign, with Obama expressing deep concern about Mr. Trump's political strength. Underscoring the urgency, one source telling me this is an all-hands-on-deck moment.
All hands on deck. I wonder about that meeting. I mean, I think I have said this many occasions. There's only one person in the Democrat Party who has the kind of clout and the sway with Joe Biden to sort of, tell him, Joe, it's not working. Something's not right. Maybe you need to think about this. I think what Obama probably told him is, you get out there and you run the best campaign you can, but if things look bad by the time we get to the convention, we're going to have to do something else. So, heads up, all hands on deck. So you're going to hear all hands on deck. I think that's what it means. You better get this campaign, moving. And it really is not. I mean, did you see this embarrassing display the other day where Biden is, going to have a major campaign speech? So let's just, recap the day. He shuffles out from the Oval Office to the helicopter. I mean, it's pretty easy. It's a big open lawn and there's a helicopter on it, and you're going somewhere. So he can't get lost between the Oval Office and the helicopter. But then when he gets off the helicopter out at Andrews, he looks around like he doesn't know where he's supposed to go. Well, apparently the Air Force One was behind him and he didn't notice that. So he finally makes it. He takes the short stairs because they're worried he's going to trip and fall. So they got him going up the short stairs instead of the tall stairs, which means that if he falls, it's going to be inside the aircraft where you can't see him. He's still going to fall, but at least it'll be, out of the view of cameras. And then they get to the event, I nailed this one, I have to say. First thing you see is that Jill Biden walks him out to the stage and waves like, hey, I'm Jill Biden. Here we are. We're good to see you. And then she takes him to the podium and then she exits, right? And I was talking to Matt Murphy at the time, and I said, you watch, she'll show up at the very end of the speech to guide him off the stage. Because what happens universally is the man looks around and he doesn't know where he's supposed to go, which is baffling to me because I know how they prep these things. I've been backstage. I've seen this stuff. They give him instructions in seconds before he goes to the stage just to remind him. You come in this stage, you come off the same way. There'll be an arrow taped. I'm not making this up. There's an arrow taped with duct tape on the floor that points him in the right direction. So he knows where he's supposed to go. And so, sure enough, the moment that speech was over, there was Jill right by his side. She takes him by the hand and leads him off so he doesn't look like a little lost puppy again. This is our president, ladies and gentlemen. This is our president. Okay, other news. I see I've got to Kamala, got that done. Okay, here is Chuck Scarborough. Chuck Scarborough has apparently been listening to The Drive with Brian Wilson. I know that because he's stealing my stuff. He's stealing my talking points. You ready? Here he is talking about Donald Trump as Obi-Wan Kenobi. We always talk about that, how that if you strike me down, I'll come back even stronger.
I represent
son. Not that one. This one.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Here's Chuck Scarborough on MSNBC.
This is the Obi-Wan Kenobi trick. Strike me down, constitutionalists, and I, Trump, will only become more. No, it's not that way.
Well, yes, it is that way. And so, there are some stories out there we're going to be talking about in our Epstein segment here in just a bit that name Donald Trump. And you know what? As I said, I don't think it makes any difference, but we'll tell you the story so you'll be aware of what's going on. But, no matter what you do to this guy, he comes back stronger than ever. He is Obi-Don Kenobi.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
This is the way.
This is the way.
It is always the way. All right, so there's that. And then, let's see, Elise Stefanik. She's, third-ranking member in the House. And she's really been making a name for herself of lately, Representative Stefanik. And some people say she could well be the vice president nominee for Trump. She's very much supportive of Trump, completely endorses what he does. And she was asked during a network appearance this weekend, well, would you commit to certifying the election? And how's that went?
Would you vote to certify, and will you vote to certify the results of the 2024 election, no matter what they show?
Well, I voted not to certify the state of Pennsylvania because, as we saw in Pennsylvania and other states across the country, that there was unconstitutional acts circumventing the state legislature and unilaterally changing election law.
What about 2024? What about 2024?
We will see if this is a legal and valid election. What we're seeing so far is that Democrats are so desperate, they're trying to remove President Trump from the ballot. That is a suppression of the American people, and the Supreme Court is taking that case up in February. That should be a 9-0 to allow President Trump to appear on the ballot, because that's the American people's decision to make this November.
And the matter is, of course, halted pending that appeal, as you say. But just to be very clear, I don't hear you committed to certifying the election results. Will you only commit to certify the results if former President Trump wins? Does that mean if former President Trump wins?
No, it means if they are constitutional. What we saw in 2020 was unconstitutional circumventing of the Constitution, not going through state legislatures when it comes to changing election law. And we're seeing this in my home state of New York, Kristen. We are seeing Democrats try to steal the election and illegally gerrymander congressional districts that we fairly won and are fair line. So I see this at a very local level, as well as the unconstitutional overreach we saw at the national level in 2020.
There you go. One other note, Kari Lake, Arizona, running for the Senate. Some people have talked about her as a vice president, or I don't think she wants to be in the Senate. Has raised over $2 million in the past quarter. So she's going to be able to put on a very formidable campaign. 53 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler.
One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
Taking a look at weather as a wind advisory goes into effect tonight, expected to be the strongest. We'll give you a weather update, plus crime in Tennessee, all here, 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets as the markets have closed here in the last hour. NASDAQ is down 216 points. S&P is up 66, and the NASDAQ is up 319. So all screens are pretty vibrantly green at this hour. What's driving all of this today and what's going on with the markets? Let's check in with John Maxon. Happy New Year to you, John.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Brian. Definitely a great day in the market compared to last week. It was a pretty welcome sign. But, you know, we had a pretty good run-up at the end of the year. It's not atypical to see a little bit of a pullback. But really, equities fell last week because the market's still concerned that the Fed may not be ready to cut rates just yet. But the day actually started out pretty flat. But the Atlanta Fed president came out and said that inflation is actually lower than he expected. And so that gave a lot of fuel to the fire with the market taking off. NASDAQ having a great day, best day since November 14th. We're going to get a lot of inflation information on Thursday and Friday of this week, the CPI and the PPI report. So important to pay attention as a direction for inflation later in the week, but a great day today.
All right, John Maxon. And by the way, over at Beacon Capital Management, they can help you with all of your needs. Why don't you reach out to them at askbeaconnow.com. It is 59, make it 59 and a half minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.402, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories, 52 degrees, and we've got a wind advisory in effect starting at 6 tonight. It'll last until midnight on Wednesday here in the mid-state, and with that, wind gusts of up to 45 miles an hour can be expected tonight. The heaviest winds are expected. Showers are very likely. Traffic, a complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Secretary of State Blinken has a busy travel week working on everything from shipping attacks in the Red Sea to the deadly war in Gaza. Andy Field on the latest from the Middle East.
Secretary of State Blinken says he will make clear to Israel that the staggering number of Gaza civilian deaths is intolerable.
I will press on the absolute imperative to do more to protect civilians.
Secretary Blinken continuing his week-long trip through the Middle East, gathering support to end that war in Gaza, the attacks on Red Sea shipping, trying to ease other regional conflicts.
And as of 2 days ago, the death toll in Gaza over 22,000 since the Hamas attacks on October 7th. Juvenile crime in Tennessee. Police said that a 16-year-old student at Glencliff High School has been charged after being found with a firearm on the property. The teenager ran from the school and a random search was being conducted. He was found at a nearby church hiding a pistol. Police found a vape and a firearm magazine during that search. And we're learning more about who knew what when it comes to the ongoing hospitalization of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. It only became public knowledge last Friday, which is 4 days after Austin was taken by ambulance to the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Stephen Portnoy brings us the latest.
Even as it was kept for days from the president, it now seems several officials at the Pentagon were in on the secret that the defense secretary had been hospitalized. Along with Lloyd Austin's chief of staff and the Joint Chiefs chairman, the Pentagon's press secretary says he was told Tuesday by his civilian boss, a former Biden White House spokesman. The Pentagon says Austin is out of the ICU now and working from his hospital bed as he continues to experience discomfort. We still haven't been told of the elective procedure he sought on December 22nd.
And back here in Tennessee, the Tennessee Department of Health has released a list of the 25 girl and boy names that were most popular in Tennessee for 2023. For girls, number 1 was Charlotte. Boys, it was Liam that took up the number 1 spot, while Olivia and Oliver came in at number 2. Amelia and James, number 3. Emma and William, number 4. And Ava and Noah, number 5. Wrap up those top 5 names parents named their children last year. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 9 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Good afternoon. Brian Wilson in the chair on this 8th day of January. You ready for hour number 2 of the drive? We're going to bring you all kinds of news and information you can use. So just, listen, you don't want to be outside today. It's just raw. That's the word that best describes, that's the official meteorological term for today. It's a raw day.
That's what
just
I call
it. Cold. It's actually nearly 50 degrees. It just doesn't feel like it because the wind.
Yep.
Yeah, the wind will cut right through you, is what they used to say. And so we'll have all the news and breaking news. We're just beginning to hear a report about some kind of explosion in Fort Worth. That's literally all I know about it. But we're on it, and we're trying to find out more about it. But Mac Maury is doing everything he can to track down information, and we'll break in if we have any kind of news you need to know. We're also sort of, I guess, in the area of breaking news, we're sort of waiting to hear how a meeting goes between Vrabel and the owners of the team, and apparently it's supposed to be a big meeting about the future leadership of the Titans and how that's all going to go. And how they can regroup after what has not been a particularly good year. They had, by the way, they did win against the Jaguars and denied the Jaguars an attempt to get into the playoffs. So there's that. But, it really, there's been a lot of questions about the future of the Titans and what should be done. And is Vrabel the guy to lead them? Look, I don't have any inside information, just that there's a lot of talk about that. And now apparently today, there's a team meeting. So we're watching for that to see if there's any outcome of that meeting today as well. And while we're doing all that, Mac Maury will break in if we have anything. Let me just start talking about things that are going on. It's the state legislature getting ready. Here we go. You ready for another session of the General Assembly as they take on a whole bunch of stuff? Well, what's going to be on tap for this gathering of the General Assembly? Well, I think we've talked about it endlessly. One of the big issues, of course, is going to be the governor's proposal for school choice vouchers. His Education Freedom Scholarship Act would offer, and we only have the bare bones of this, some 20,000 students would get about $7,000 to attend a private school or cover other educational expenses. Now, the first 10,000 slots would have an income requirement. The second would not. And that's in the first year. But in the second year, 2025, not that far, it would expand to universal eligibility so that any student in the state of Tennessee could get a grant of $7,000. And that money would then follow the student, and the student could go to a charter school, a religious school, whatever, for educational expenses. I guess even homeschooling would be something that could be considered. We've not seen the governor's proposal yet. We understand they're still putting the fine points on it. I'll tell you that I have heard that there's one concern about making sure that $7,000 grants will not be coming to people who come here illegally. That is something that is a concern of some legislators. And I'll give you another one. I was approached, I got an email from a listener who raised a very good question, and that is, well, what about students who are student athletes? Now, as the dad of a former student athlete, I know how important that is. And the question that they asked was, well, what about student athletes? Are they stuck going to a bad school simply because they want to be involved in the athletic program as well? Good question. Hadn't heard anybody talk about that, but it is something that I think will be on the minds of many parents. I also hear that there's a lot of pushback from school boards and superintendents of schools around the state. That's not going to make any big difference, I don't think. I think you would expect them to be screaming about the potential loss of revenue. But the bottom line is, if you're not educating as many students, you don't need as much money. That's just the way it works. And what we need is excellence in our schools. And there are some school districts where excellence is simply not happening. They are not getting the job done, and we know that because the students in Tennessee in some areas are way behind where they should be in their educational process. So I love the idea. I haven't always been able to support some of the legislative proposals put forth by the governor, but I love this one, and I think it's a good idea. So my sense of it is it probably passes, but there apparently are a lot of details that need to be worked out before they reveal this package to the state legislature. That has not happened as yet. There will be, by the way, there will not be apparently, the governor's not committing to having these tests where, okay, you give money, kid goes to a charter school, okay, do they have to have a test to find out how the kids are doing? I don't know. I think you need something like that to make sure that the system is working the way you anticipated. You don't just give people money without knowing whether what you'd hope would happen. But as I understand it, there are some concerns about that as well. There's a lot of, it sounds like a great idea, and it is a great idea. Don't get me wrong. But the devil is in the details, and a lot of the details, other than the broad brush, we don't know. Among some of the other things that have been filed as bills in this coming session, Tennessee lawmaker files a bill to have the Covenant school shooters' writings released. A Tennessee lawmaker has filed a bill that would require law enforcement to release all records related to the Covenant school shooting. That's going to be interesting since it's in a court right now. Representative Gino Bulso, Republican of Brentwood, filed House Bill 1653 on Monday. The bill's language suggests the bill would allow the release of all evidence related to the shooting at the Covenant School, where, of course, 3 children and 3 adults were killed on March 27th. If passed, the bill would require all state and local law enforcement agencies to release to Bulso a copy of the records, including but not limited to all writings and medical toxicology or other reports of the school shooter. The bill's chance of passing is said to be tricky, according to WSMV, considering the ongoing legal battle in Davidson County Chancery Court over the record's release. As you know, that is ongoing. It's been ongoing and ongoing and ongoing since people started asking for the release of the manifesto. But, it is ongoing, and that at least that bill is going to see if they can have a legislative solution to that problem. Tennessee's 2024 legislative session key bills. How about this one? HB 1626 would enact the fundamental right to reproductive health care, brought by Democrats, no doubt, would enact the Fundamental Right to Reproductive Health Care Act, meaning the state cannot interfere with abortion services. Not going anywhere. Bail and bonds would revise various provisions regarding pretrial release of defendants charged with a criminal offense to require the magistrate to give first consideration to ensuring the safety of the community. What a concept when determining whether to impose conditions of release or require a deposit of bail. SB 1643, age verification for sites with sexual material. Require commercial entities that publish or distribute material on an internet website, more than 1/3 of which is sexual material harmful to minors, to verify an individual attempting to access the material is 18 years or older. Prohibits a commercial entity or third party that performs the age verification for retaining any identifying information of the individual. On education, SB 1647, discount for children of Tennessee National Guardsmen for higher education, would provide a 25% discount on the tuition charged by state institutions of higher learning to the child of an active or retired member of the Tennessee Army National Guard or the Tennessee Air National Guard. Let's see, in the area of finance and administration, a violence intervention program would create a Tennessee Violence Intervention Program within the Department's Office of Criminal Justice Programs to invest in evidence-based violence reduction initiatives. I don't know where that's coming from, what that involves. Hotel and restaurant bills. One would ban untrained service animals in indoor areas of food service establishment. You have to have a trained animal, which means that Grogu will never be allowed in a restaurant. There's no doubt about that. That dog is not well trained. Okay, we talked about the other one. Let's see. Require the state to pay the cost of court-ordered mental evaluations. And this one, HB 1640, tackles mental competency in trials. And it also gets at the question of whether if someone is found to be, not able to go forward by reason of insanity or because they don't have a grasp of what's going on in the court around them, it would then pose a prohibition against them purchasing weapons. And the question is, is that purchasing or possessing? Where will that go? There's a whole lot of other things, but one of the things that we talked about with Mark Pody, Senator Pody, is this idea of a new device, sort of like a camera that the police officers carry, except that it's not always recording. It only records when you hit one button. One button is, for in-classroom behavioral disciplinary issues. It would allow them to record it, and then your SRO, your principal, would also see that feed. A second one would be one that first after there's a medical emergency, that would alert 911, send an ambulance, but also let the officials within the building know that you have a medical emergency. The third button would be for a potential shooting situation, and everybody would come running, and it would go straight into 911, and the feed would actually go directly to the 911 center. I love that idea, and I think that's probably going to zip right through the state legislature. Okay, there's that. By the way, here's a fun one from the state of Tennessee. How about this? Arnold's is open again for lunch. Chris, you and I, we got to go to Arnold's.
We got to, yeah.
We got to go down and get us some meat and three. It has reopened effective January 8th, which is today. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., you can go back down to Arnold's downtown and eat.
I have a feeling you should probably get there early.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a lot of people who will be happy to see Arnold's back open. Yep. It is 22 past the hour now.
We're monitoring an explosion, reports of a gas explosion at a hotel in Fort Worth, Texas. Taking a look at America's first lunar launch in 50 years. And today's Money News, 4:30 Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
27 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Jeffrey Epstein document dump keeps coming. There have been, I think, 4, maybe 5 different dumps of documents. The big one didn't reveal much. That was the first one, 1,000 pages. Some of these have been smaller dumps, but there have been some stories that have come out, including one that I just need to bring to your attention. Now, before I even get into it, I want you to know that the Trump people have denied this strongly, as have others. But there is a story out there, I'm reading this one from the Daily Mail, that Donald Trump has been named in some of these Epstein documents, and there was a woman by the name of Sarah Ransom, isn't that an interesting name, who said that Donald Trump had sex with many girls at Epstein's home there in New York. And that Jeffrey Epstein's kept blackmail videos that showed Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Richard Branson, the millionaire from Virgin Atlantic, having sex with women he supplied them with. Now, there was at one point an angry email that was apparently an attempt to scare people that said that the videos were out there and they were going to be released. But the Trump campaign, I guess, has now fully and strongly denied the allegations. These baseless accusations haven't been retracted because they are simply false and have no merit. And a spokesman for Branson's company, Virgin, also denied the allegations. And in fact, they quote this. They say, in a New Yorker report published in 2019, Ransom admitted that she had invented the tapes. We confirm that Sarah Ransom's claims are baseless and unfounded. Look, if there were tapes out there, do you think they would have not come out before now? It seems like if the Democrats are out to destroy this guy, and they are, then one of the first things they would do if they had tapes like this is to bring them out. So I guess my skepticism is pretty high here. But I just want to make sure you're aware of the allegation that's been made and strongly denied by the Trump folks over at the campaign. Now, I will say this about this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. There seems to be a lot more that we expected than has actually been revealed. I mean, we knew several things. We knew that there was this whole bunch of activity. We knew that names were going to be revealed. All the John Does and all the Jane Does were going to be revealed publicly, and that has happened. But in many of the cases where the names have been revealed, what you also have is, this is part of a deposition, not really a client list, as many people sort of have characterized it. And in this deposition, in a cross-examination, the first thing that the person being deposed says, well, do you personally have any knowledge of this? And they would say, no, I don't. I don't know that happened. I'm just, there was some idle gossip about this and idle gossip about that, and I heard this and I saw that. But every time you start to sort of bear down on a name, it turns out that that the people who were making the depositions had to back down and say, well, no, I don't really know that. I don't believe, and I don't know of anything that person did that was inappropriate. So, I mean, as we get this stuff, it is turning out to be a lot less than I thought we might get. But the story is out there and worthy of sort of keeping in your back pocket. Again, seems to me that if Democrats were out to do this, then they would have done it before now. Trust me, I think that they would have pulled it out in the last campaign, and they did not. It's 31 past the hour now, 4 o'clock.
.431, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 51 degrees right now. A wind advisory going into effect at 6 o'clock tonight. It'll stay in effect in the mid-state until midnight on Wednesday. Could see wind gusts of up to 45 miles an hour. The strongest we're expecting will happen tonight. That'll be accompanied by showers likely this evening as well. Forecast traffic report just ahead, 5 minutes. Right now, monitoring a breaking news story out of Fort Worth, Texas. There have been reports of a gas explosion at the Sandman Hotel on Houston Street. The Fort Worth Fire Department says there are as many as 10 people injured. No information on the condition of those injured. And it's not looking good for America's first lunar launch in 50 years. The privately built Peregrine robotic lunar lander, carrying a variety of scientific payloads provided by NASA and other space agencies, has propulsion issues, making it impossible to turn towards the sun for power. This is a sort of test run for NASA's crewed Artemis moon mission, scheduled for launch in November. Now over to the money news. Daria Albinger.
Stocks soared to start the week ahead of some important economic data. The Dow rose 217 points. The Nasdaq closed up 320 and the S&P added 66 for the day. Boeing stock fell 8% after one of its jets lost its exit door plug in flight. Falling Treasury yields helping stocks. The 10-year Treasury sank below 4%. It was above 5% in October at its highest point and put some major downward pressure on the stock market then. We get some key reads this week on inflation with the latest consumer price and producer price indices. They measure costs on the consumer and wholesale levels. The economy so far has remained resilient despite worries about a looming recession, and that's helped protect revenue. It's a big week for earnings. Delta, JP Morgan, Chase, and United Health Group all scheduled to release their latest numbers. And after 27 years, Tiger Woods and Nike are parting ways.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Time to head down to the swamp. A lot of swampalicious things are going on right now. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who I generally have liked in his early going as Speaker of the House, cut a deal with Chuck Schumer that set sort of guidelines for how any kind of budget deal that keeps the government operating might lay out. It's a $1.6 trillion federal budget agreement he's made with Schumer and President Biden, and there are quite a few conservatives in the House. Johnson is said to be one of them, but quite a few conservatives who are not happy to be informed about this deal and think the number's too high. And there are some talks that a number of House Republicans will not vote for any measure, which would mean, he needs all the votes he can get. So unless there's a lot of support from Democrats, and I think that's the only way it gets passed, there will not be universal support for whatever they come up with. Now it's just a framework. Now they have to fill in all the blanks and decide how much goes to discretionary, how much goes to non-discretionary, and how that money will be spent. And that's still, being worked on up against a deadline later this month. But, apparently some Republicans are not happy. And remember, it only takes one person who gets their nose out of joint to go to the floor and demand that the seat be vacated. Remember Kevin McCarthy and all that? Well, the reason I mention it is there was a story this weekend that I had not, considered this thing, perhaps as I should have. It was in the Washington Examiner. House Republicans cannot risk a single death or defection without losing control of the House of Representatives. Let me read this. Although voters narrowly gave Republicans control of the House, the once grand old party was keen to throw away its majority, despite the GOP's let's just skip through all this. So remember, it was Speaker McCarthy who went out, and it took 3 or 4 tries before we ended up with Mike Johnson. And now we have him settling in on this deal. So, and on top of that, remember, Gates got rid of McCarthy. McCarthy is gone. He's resigned from Congress. You had George Santos, who was removed from Congress. And then now you have Steve Scalise, who is suffering from multiple myeloma and is off and out of the Beltway for a month, going through stem cell transplants to try to, beat that. That leaves Republicans with exactly 218 seats and 4 vacancies up for re-election. And the short run of this, what this really means is, in the short run, Republicans cannot afford a single other death, defection, or electoral or legal scandal. And it could be even worse if somebody were to die, and this happens pretty regularly. A lot of old people on Capitol Hill. If somebody were to die on the Republican side of the equation, the Democrats could gain control of the House. Thank you for starting this, Matt Gaetz. My gosh. So, a lot is at stake here. And, we pray daily. We need to pray daily for the continued health of all Republicans in the House of Representatives. Because I'm telling you, if we lose a couple more, it could be really, really bad. And the Democrats would take over the House. See, I always thought that what Matt Gaetz, I sort of understood where Matt Gaetz was coming from. He was angry. He didn't like McCarthy. McCarthy had done some things that some of the conservatives didn't like. But by doing so and starting that ball rolling, he has put us at great risk of losing the House of Representatives. So, long story short, yes, there may be some people who are Republicans who are not happy with what Johnson has come up with, but do I think they're going to challenge him? No. Are they going to vote for it? No. But the matter could pass with Democrat votes and a few Republicans. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said today she will vote against any bill that results from the $1.6 trillion top-line funding agreement reached on Sunday. I am a no to the Johnson-Schumer budget deal, she wrote on X. This $1.6 trillion budget agreement does nothing to secure the border, stop the invasion, or stop the weaponized government targeting Biden's political enemies and innocent Americans. So much for the power of the purse, she writes. So much of the deal on the top line figure is taken from last year's debt ceiling agreement, which saw then Speaker Kevin McCarthy compromise on spending cuts. So it seems that Johnson is sort of has his hands tied because that was already been agreed to before he ever became Speaker. And there's going to be a lot of argument and a lot of people screaming and hollering. But I don't know, and I don't like the idea that we are committed to such a high number. But it does seem to me that it is likely to keep the government from closing down because Democrats will vote for it, a few Republicans will vote for it, and a number of Republicans will vote against it. This one caught my personal attention, Chris. Attorneys for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves, suggested that law enforcement will soon target those who just stood outside the Capitol on January 26, 2021. During a press conference this week, Graves hinted that Americans who didn't even go inside the Capitol building could still lead to thousands of arrests. An important note when it comes to our prosecutions about those who remained outside the building. We have used our prosecutorial discretion to primarily focus on those who entered the building or those who engaged in violent or corrupt conduct on Capitol grounds. But if a person knowingly entered the restricted area without authorization, they had already committed a federal crime. Well, what was the restricted area? What, the Capitol lawn? I don't see that as a restricted area. I was there, and there was no police presence telling people not to come onto the Capitol lawn. There were some bicycle racks. Make no mistake, thousands of people occupied an area that they were not authorized to be present in the first place. Now, look, I think the Capitol lawn is a public space. I don't know how you're going to carry that one out. Is he talking about the space up near the building where, no, you just can't roam around there, aimlessly? Maybe that's what he's talking about. I don't know. But the D.C. District Attorney's already charged more than 1,400 Americans with crimes relating to the protest. He also handed down more than 900 convictions. Almost all of them have prison sentences. So I don't know. We'll see what happens here. But, I think it's a lot of tough talk. I don't know how you do that. I just don't know. And first of all, I'm not worried about me. I was a reporter. I had legitimate journalistic duties and a right to be there as a reporter. So I'm not too worried about that. But, other people, what are you going to charge them with? Sitting on the lawn and sunbathing? Because that's what I saw. There were thousands of people just lounging around, soaking up the sun. Were there people up against the building that were causing problems? Yes. Were there people going into areas on the Capitol Plaza on that side of the building? Yes. Are those the people he's talking about? Maybe. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I don't know how you take people who just came to exercise their First Amendment rights and somehow charge them with trespassing on Capitol Hill in an area that is largely open to the public. We'll watch it. Also watching this, and I don't know any more about this than what I'm reading. Police in Silt, Colorado, according to the Washington Examiner, are investigating an incident between Representative Lauren Boebert and her ex-husband Jason Boebert that happened Saturday night. Law enforcement called to the Miners Claim restaurant in Silt on Saturday. No one taken into custody, an investigation ongoing, according to the Silt Police Chief Mike Kite talking to the Denver Post. A political organization seeking to oust Boebert for Congress, American Muckrakers, posted that claims that Boebert punched her ex-husband in the face twice. The Colorado Republican denied that accusation, calling it a sad situation for all of us that keeps escalating. This is a sad situation. I didn't punch Jason in the face, and no one was arrested. I will be consulting with my lawyer about the false claims he made against me and evaluate all my legal options. They filed for divorce in May of 2023, citing truly irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in October. They've been married since 2005, have 4 kids together. Boebert announced last month she would be seeking office in the more Republican-friendly 4th Congressional District of Colorado. She narrowly won re-election to her seat in the 3rd Congressional District by just 500 votes. There was another incident with Boebert when in the videotape clearly shows that she was doing it. She was booted from a showing of the musical Beetlejuice in Colorado for being too loud and for vaping. So Boebert, I don't know. You never know. Divorce. It makes people do crazy things, right? Who knows what's going on? But Boebert's having to explain herself again. And she says it didn't happen quite that way. But apparently there may be some tape, we hear. And so, whatever it is, the truth will probably come out. But there seems to be a little chaos surrounding Congresswoman Boebert wherever she goes so far. And then when she says it didn't happen, like, for example, the thing at the theater, she says it didn't happen. And they say, oh, really? It didn't happen? Well, here happens to be the security footage from our cameras showing exactly what we said happened. Oh, well, never mind. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.